everybody. I'm Stacy.
And I'm her daughter, Mickey.
And welcome to KiddieNomics. Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Kids Financial Literacy Friday with us. We are super excited to have you guys on today because this is a special edition of KiddieNomics because we have the amazing, the phenomenal Dr. Jill Andrew, MPP for the NDP Party for Toronto Writing. So we are so excited to have her on today. And this KiddieNomics is going to be a little bit different because we're going to do more of an interview style with Dr. Jill. So we will get into that in a minute. But first, of course, let me share my screen and start KiddieNomics.
Yeah.
I think all the kids are already saying hi online.
Yes, they are. They are.
All right. So welcome to KiddieNomics. All right. So welcome to all of the new kiddies that have registered this week. Welcome if this is your first time on KiddieNomics. If you put into the chat that this is your first time, the kids will welcome you and say hi. So please go ahead and do that in the chat. And of course, if you are one of our returning kiddies, you guys have been here week after week. We love and thank you for always being here every single Friday night. I know that some kids, this was a day off. This was a PA day. So I'm sure this is like, but we love you guys here on KiddieNomics. So thank you so much for spending your Friday night here with us. I don't know who's calling me on KiddieNomics time. All right, so let's get into it. Oh, should we do roll call? Okay, I'll do roll call after because all the kids are waiting on it. So I'll do roll call after. But first, I'll tell you, what is KiddieNomics about? KiddieNomics is here to help kids ages 8 to 13 to develop a healthy relationship towards financial literacy, helping to start kids off on the right path towards a successful financial future. That's what we want for you. That's what I want for her.
Yeah.
That's what she wants for me. That's what we want for every kitty around the world, right? Every man, woman, child. We want everybody to have a successful financial future. And having the foundation of financial literacy will definitely help to propel that, okay? So, listen, I just got to do some housekeeping items today. Just remember that each and every single KiddieNomics webinar is recorded. So we do record them all, but we cannot see or hear any of you kiddies, right? So you could only communicate with us through the chat box, either down below or up above or to the side or in the corner, depending on where your chat box is, okay? So you can talk to us in the chat box if you have any questions or when you answer a question. You can type it in the chat box. If you choose to raise your hand, that's fine, but remember to type your question in the chat box, okay? Also, as I said, that we do record every single KiddieNomics webinar. So this KiddieNomics webinar will be posted to our KiddieNomics YouTube channel by 8 p.m. tonight, which is Eastern Standard Time. So that will be posted tonight, and this webinar, along with all of our other webinars that we've ever had, is posted on our KiddieNomics YouTube channel. So if this is your first one and you feel like you want to catch up, you can check out our YouTube channel, and it has all of our other webinars, which there is a lot, right? There's a lot there. So you can check that out, okay? Now, before I get started with Dr. Jill, let's do roll call. You guys have to tell me which country you are joining us from today. Now, okay, the kids are probably going to give me planets, but let me get into the chat. Let's see. All right, Canada, Brielle, Canada. Madeline, Canada.
Someone's on Mars.
Someone's from Mars. Yeah, we
Yep.
Mars. Oh, we get Samuel's from New Zealand. That's amazing. Melissa, Canada. Raj, Canada. Michelle, Canada, aka Earth. Got you, Tracy. Oh, look at Francesco. He is from the US, and let's see, Ibby says he's from India, which is awesome.
Philippines.
Oh, Samuel from the Philippines. That's amazing. Rosemary from Canada. Somewhere on planet Earth from Logan. You guys are amazing.
Nigeria.
Wow. So amazing. All right. Thank you very much for roll call.
Neptune.
All right. So we're going to get started with Miss Jill. We are, just remember guys, just to monitor, I do monitor the chat box, so I do see your questions. Please, if you do see me say anything in the chat box when I say, you know, just can we focus on the expert? I just want you guys to calm down the chatter a little bit because you got to stay focused on the expert, okay? Otherwise than that, you'll always see my name answering you guys in the chat box, so it's always Stacy Brown, okay? All right, so let's get into our expert today because I'm so excited. This is our first KiddieNomics webinar where we're doing more of an interview style. So let me put my Oprah hat on because she did an amazing interview this past week.
I heard, I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
Well, it was amazing. So let me try my best. I am definitely not Oprah. So Dr. Jill Andrew, and yes, she is a doctor. Dr. Jill Andrew. She is the MPP for St. Paul's, Toronto, and acts as a leading voice on issues of gender, race, and social justice, the housing crisis, healthcare and inequities, education, and the immeasurable benefit of arts and culture to the communities, but also to our physical, mental, and social health. Outside of politics, Jill is the co-founder of Body Confidence Canada and is an award-winning educator and former columnist, equity and body image advocate, speaker, and writer. So let's give a big KiddieNomics round of applause. Dr. Jill. Hi, Dr. Jill. I'm going to stop sharing my screen there.
Hi, Stacy, and hi, Mickey. And for the purpose of today, I am just Jill. Please feel free to call me Jill.
Then.
Okay, Miss Jill. Feel free to call me Miss Jill. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I just want to say, even sitting and listening to you talk about KiddieNomics, it's certainly a platform I wish I had when I was growing up. So I can only imagine, Mickey and Stacy, the kinds of lives, the numbers of lives that you are impacting across the globe. Well, I just realized it with roll call. So who knows, you know, somebody will be here from goodness gracious where, who knows next time. So yeah, this is really, really good. Good. Financial literacy.
Thank you so much for coming on KiddieNomics. It's such an honor.
Thank you.
Because we had a few kids that really, and parents that wanted to talk more about politics and how kids could get involved and what does that look like. And we discussed everything financial literacy and even the things regarding to financial literacy.
Okay.
I'm so happy that you agreed to come on KiddieNomics because this is a big win for us. So thank you so much. So let's get into it. We had a few questions from our community, right? And first, one of our questions was, what are the different levels of government and what do they do?
Very, very, very good question. And for some reason, I'm not seeing you. What? Oh, here you are. You're back. My computer's acting up, I guess. So yes, there are several levels of government. We've got a municipal level of government. The municipal level of government is sort of like our city of Toronto. You know what I mean? And that's the level of government where city councillors work to really support their local communities, you know, whether that's their libraries, you know, social services, whether that's fire services and police services. You know, if there's a local issue, you might check in with your city councillor and say, hey, you know what? We need more bus stops to be more accessible for our seniors, you know, who are moving around our community in different ways than someone like Mickey might. You know, they're also, you know, supporting our communities with recycling and public transportation. So your municipal government or your city councillor is sort of your first stop for local supports in your community. And something that's really cool about the City of Toronto is that they have a housing secretariat, you know, someone that really advocates for people to live in safe and healthy houses, you know, advocates for people to have access to affordable housing. That's really important. That's something that really, really matters, you know, because I think it's, if we don't have a city functioning, if we don't have a mayor, if we don't have our city councillors, you know, if we don't have someone that we can call, you know, to know what bylaw impacts, you know, the way that we live in our apartment buildings, or what bylaw might impact, you know, the way that our libraries might function, then what do? We're in trouble, you know? So we definitely have to have a municipal government. And, I'm speaking, from my location here in St. Paul. So we're talking about City of Toronto, we're talking about the province of Ontario, and of course, we're talking about our great nation of Canada. Right? So outside of your municipal government, you also have your provincial government, and that's where I am. I'm a member of the official opposition. That's the New Democrat Party, or the NDP, and in power right now, we have Premier Doug Ford, who is the leader of the Conservative Party. So those are kind of like the two big parties that are represented provincially. You have your official opposition and you have your government. And of course, you also have MPPs who are Liberal Party members, and you have an MPP who is also the leader of the Green Party as well, right? Provincially, we deal with issues that really impact the province. So like education, that's a big one, right? Like we have to fund our education system. I think of, like the Toronto District School Board, they've got, I don't know, like a $3.5 billion annual budget, and that budget, I want to give a shout out to all of our school trustees, because, people may not think of school trustees as members of government, but in my opinion, school trustees, they are elected officials, and they are sort of like the front line. They're the people who are supporting our young ones in schools. They are making decisions on educational policy, and where certain dollars go within the school board. And I mean, the TDSB is like the biggest school board, we have. So it's really important that we give a shout out to our school board trustees, who are very important. Provincially, as I said, education is one of our big things. Healthcare is another really big area that the province sort of governs over. Our environment, and I can't say enough about how important our environment is, because even though we're dealing with COVID-19, which is kind of like the big purple elephant in the room, we can't forget about climate change. We can't forget about how our footprint, on this earth impacts, our earth, not only for us, but for you, Mickey, and for all of you that are joining us, the children, the leaders of today, and certainly of tomorrow. And on that note, agriculture is also something that is provincially governed, highways. So we deal with things that are very important to the province on a whole, right? And really, education and healthcare, I would say, are like the two biggest budget items provincially, And a little bit of sad news to share, sadly, education and healthcare are also really, really, really poorly funded. Like we need more funding, because they're both funded below inflation. And that definitely has an impact. It has an impact on how we live. It has an impact. It has an impact on how we live. It has an impact on the futures that you all can have tomorrow. Because guess what? If we don't have a properly funded education system, right, then we're not giving every child that opportunity to have an excellent quality education, right? And I really believe in public education. And part of that strong belief and commitment is that we have to keep fighting, to do better by our schools, to do better by our, educators and our education workers, and most importantly, to do better by all of you, students who are coming to school to get that academic enrichment, social, cultural, emotional enrichment, so that one day you can be a contributing citizen, to the economy, to your community identity, to your life, right? Because that's what it's all about, right? We want you to be contributing. We want you to, have a wonderful job, a wonderful career, and we want you to work really hard. I just saw that Layla says, I work very hard. And I can't tell you how important it is to work very hard. But then the weird thing is, sometimes even when we work really, really, really hard, there are barriers, there are things that are outside of our control, that sometimes hold us back. And the more we can fund our education system, similar to the healthcare system, I'll chat a little bit about that. The more we can fund our education system, the better equipped we are, right? To deal with all of those little pieces that come up, that bubble up, that need our attention, right? So I mentioned healthcare as well. That's another really important thing. We've seen, sadly, thousands of people have died, right? And many of them have been seniors and have been, frontline healthcare workers, all the folks that have been trying to get through COVID and the pandemic that we've been dealing with, right? And the reality is, COVID is no one's fault. It kind of came and bit us, when we were least expecting it, right? But how we manage COVID is certainly the responsibility of the government, And when we have a healthcare system that hasn't been properly funded, it means that we have shortages of workers. It means that workers are overworked and underpaid and understaffed. And this really puts a strain on all of those, caring families, many of whom have to become essential caregivers, which is just another fancy word for doing so much work outside of their paid jobs to help their loved ones in long-term care. And that can get really tiring, and that can get really exhausting, no matter how much they love their loved ones in long-term care. So it's really important, in my opinion. Education and healthcare are two of the big giants that the province really takes the carriage of. And therefore we have to do really well by healthcare and education, and so much more as well too on the provincial level. Federally. So first of all, I actually forgot to tell you, the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, for anyone who doesn't know, is located in Toronto, right? So that's pretty cool that I get to live in the very city where the Legislative Assembly is located, right? So that's very important. So let's hop over federally. Does anyone know where the House of Commons is located? Anyone know? Anyone want to write it in the chat?
That is so cool. Ask the kiddies. So does anybody?
Oh my goodness, Samuel is such a genius. I didn't know the answer, Samuel. I was guessing. I thought it was Ottawa. You are right. It absolutely is Ottawa. You are a genius. To Samuel and Anne and Nyana and and Oriolua. All of you all are incredibly right. So the federal government has members of parliament. So I should have told you that. I kind of skipped over it provincially because I was so excited, right? So provincially, we have members of provincial parliament. At City of Toronto, we have city councillors. In the school board, we have school board trustees. And we also have student trustees. I forgot. Student trustees are really amazing because student trustees also bring the voice of kids, of students into the trustees, into the ward. And that is so important. So student trustees are equally valuable, and they are such a seminal part of ensuring that student voice and student engagement is heard across our school boards, right? So federally, I see a hand going up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for student trustee, is that
yes.
Who can become a student trustee if the kids want to know?
Ooh, goodness gracious. Oh, the criteria for becoming a school board student trustee. Well, you do have to be elected, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't want to guess. I don't want to guess an answer on the fly. But what I can tell you is I can get you that information. I can totally get you that information. But school trustees are very, very important because, student school trustees are just as important because, again, they really emphasize student voice, and they bring that student voice to all the adult trustees that are sitting on the board as well. So federally, right, the federal government deals with the issues that are, national in scope, but the federal government also really deals with our international face, or like our image across the globe, right? So think of things like international relations, immigration, criminal law, taxes, national defense, foreign policy. All of these are things that are very important to the federal government. And I'll tell you, to anyone who wants to become a member of parliament, not provincial parliament, although it's a skill there too, a member of parliament. What other language other than English do you want to make sure you can speak?
Oh, that's a
anyone.
Type in the
anyone.
chat. Other language would be great if you know how to speak it. Samuel says French. Melanie says French.
Right on.
Wow.
Right on. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Absolutely right. And that's because French is one of our official languages, right? So it really does help you federally if you have French under your belt. And I must tell you, you know, I am a person who does not have French under my belt. And it's something that I really regret. Not because I have interests in running federally or becoming a federal member of parliament, because I do not, but because it just helps you communicate better with folks around the globe when you have more than one language. So yes, bonjour. So I say to all of you, stay in your languages, study your languages, get a couple languages if you want. There's a member of provincial parliament, actually. His name is Faisal Hassan. He is the MPP for York South-Weston and a very good friend of mine. He speaks 7 languages. Imagine that, 7 languages, right? So languages are a good thing. They help you connect with community, and they really allow you to, you know, be more expressive and to have more ideas to share with the world. And that can never be a bad thing.
That's awesome. Mickey goes to French immersion.
So. There you go. So Mickey, you're already ahead of the game. And when you become a member of parliament, I'll be able to sit there, you know, in my rocking chair and say, I remember Mickey.
Some of the kids online are saying, me too. So Lee, it says that, oh, she goes to French immersion.
There you go.
So I'm sure we have a lot of kids online that are in French immersion.
Yes.
This helps to reinforce why it's so great if they're learning in a second language.
It's important. It's important. It's important.
So, let's see. Does any of the kids have any questions regarding what is the municipal government, provincial government, or federal government? Because I'm gonna go on.
I know what to do. They take place of different types of
Levels. Yes.
Yes.
Levels of government. All right.
And they're all really important. And you know, something that I didn't get to stress is, you know, while we're all kind of in our own lanes, it's really important to note that, you know, the best types of governments, you know, they work together, however that can look. I mean, understandably, there are different politics at play and there's different party memberships. So everyone kind of has their own platform and their own way of doing things or their own ideals for their community or their province or their city or their ward. So on the city council side, you know, the sort of boundaries that every city councilor has is called a ward. You know, provincially, we have our ridings, you know what I mean? So although we may have our own lane, it's really important to note that the best work happens when folks can at least have a respectable working relationship. You might not like everyone, but you want to be able to respect everyone, you know, not call anyone out of their name. You know, that's a really important thing.
Fantastic. Can we ask one of the questions that you did bring up, which is the different types of parties that we do have? So you mentioned that you're with the NDP, but how many parties do we have represented in government? I mean,
right. So we have the conservative government, the progressive conservative government, party, which is the party that is governing Ontario right now. We have the NDP, the New Democrats, which are the Ontario's official opposition party. That's the party that I'm a part of. And we have the Liberal Party, and we also have the Green Party as well, too. Yes.
So 4 parties.
Yes, 4 parties, 4 different parties that we can all get involved in as you choose to. But what I tell everyone whenever they say, well, I'm kind of interested in politics, but I have no clue where to start. I would suggest that one of the smartest ways to start is to, you know, do some Googling, do some research, you know, see if you can find their party platform. And a platform is sort of like a little guide. Some guides are bigger than others. Some guides are non-existent, but I won't go there in this interview. But the bottom line is, you know, every party, should have some kind of a communicative device where you can learn, what their opinions are on housing, what are their opinions on education, what are their opinions on equity issues, on women's issues, what are their opinions on policing, what are their opinions on agriculture, on the environment, on anything you like. You read that and you sort of get a sense of who you like, and you have to ask yourself, which party's values align with mine? Which party has similar issues that I have, that I want to see change? And that's pretty much where you that's where you lay your commitment to become a member, or to volunteer, or to join a riding association, or whatnot.
Do we mind asking? Lisa wants to know, which party is the most important?
Well, that's a tricky question. Which party is the most important? Well, I am a little biased as a member of the NDP. I would absolutely say that the New Democrat Party is the most important party to me. And that's because I feel, like the NDP, we fight for working class families. We really believe in workers' rights to unionize. We really believe in workers' rights to have livable wages. We believe in healthcare. We believe in education. We really believe in the environment. We actually created the Environment Bill of Rights decades ago. We actually just put out a Green New Democratic Deal, that really wants us to, pay attention, get down to net zero emissions, make sure that we build, or that we, plant many gazillion trees, and really care for our environment in a way that is sustainable, right? Because we can do anything, but we got to think about our footprint. We have to make sure that we are, creating buildings for people to live in, that are sustainable buildings. So there's so much in the NDP party as to why I'm here. But really for me, it was about equity. It was about the party that I saw put human beings first, and also a party that's not afraid to shy away from the tough stuff. So, something that I talk about sometimes that isn't always very happy to talk about is racial profiling and carding. Here in Toronto, here in Ontario, here in Canada, we know that a lot of Black people, a lot of brown people, a lot of Indigenous people are stopped, and by police and racially profiled, or carded, where their personal information, quite frankly, an unconstitutional act, where their personal information is taken from them, like who they are, their name, their address, those kinds of things. And that shouldn't be happening in Canada. That shouldn't be happening in Ontario. It shouldn't be happening in Toronto. And I mean, no offense. I mean, there are many good police officers, but all it takes is one bad experience, to have a tragic end. So for me, when I was deciding, okay, should I run? Should I not run? It was really important for me to see that the NDP was the only party in Ontario that promised to get rid of racial profiling and carding if we won and became government in 2018. So, I mean, we didn't become a government in 2018, so that was sad. And that means that carding and racial profiling of Black people and brown people and Indigenous people, it still happens. It still happens. And that's a sad part. But, for the purpose of today, we're keeping it, light, and we're keeping it, relatively happy. But I had to drop some facts there too, right? So to all of you, young people who are deciding what party one day you want to join, or are wondering about different parties, it's so important to look at the fine print and see who really is speaking to you, who's seeing the world through the eyes that you want to see. So I got to tell you a little story. I'm a person, I love arts. I love arts. When I was in high school, I did vocal class. I did theater class. Shout out to Miss Gatsby, my favorite theater teacher, and Miss Smith, my favorite vocalist, or my favorite vocal teacher, I should say. And even my piano teacher, Miss Anderson. I loved arts, loved arts. So you can imagine, you know, when a long time ago, he used to be the premier, Mike Harris, he led the Conservative Party. When he came into power and said, the arts, that's a frill. We can cut the arts. We can make cuts to arts. That was really hurtful, you know? And it really shifted a lot of people's lives, from arts educators to students, you know, and now during COVID-19, you know, when we see how much artists have been doing for our community, you know, really lifting our spirits, you know, through visual arts, through theater, through this, through that, you know, they've been giving us all this generosity, but yet again, artists and cultural workers and folks that are like gig economy workers who are often also artists have sort of been left behind because they haven't gotten a lot of support or like help with their income or funding, you know, or anything like that during this pandemic. So that's really sad. And that's something that we're trying to fight for, trying to fight for that, you know, and make sure that our artists are doing okay too during the pandemic. And I'm noticing some comments in the chat. So I'm going to put on my child and youth worker hat, and I'm going to say, let's remember, right, that we're all here to have a pretty safe, pretty chill, pretty happy conversation. So we never want to shut anyone down. No one's question is quote unquote silly. Nobody's dumb, because we don't use language like that, right? So we want to stay really positive and stop any, you know, negative vibes that might be going on, right? So let's just focus. If you want to be negative to me, but don't be negative to each other.
Yes,
Okay.
so you guys can see me in the chat. Let's all focus on Miss Jill, okay? All right, let's get back into it. We had a few questions from some of the kids that did write in. So first from Ibby, he would like to know, what did you have to do to become an MPP? And Michelle Latunji, hopefully, Michelle, I'm pronouncing your name right. Michelle O. She would like to know, why did you want to run for a political party and what drove you? I thought those are two awesome questions.
Wow, those are big questions. Those are big questions. Well, what did I have to do, first of all? So I want to tell you all, I want to leave you all with a really important piece of information here. Many times when women and girls are asked to step up into leadership positions, oftentimes we say, not sure. We look around to make sure, are they talking to me? Really? You think I'm a leader? You think I can be a leader? Think I can be a politician? And it's not because we're not smart. It's not because we don't have it in us, because we do. I mean, we know that, you know, women and girls are very intelligent, and we have big voices and we have strong opinions. We know all of that, right? But because of how society socializes women and girls, and because of gender stereotypes, sometimes we can think we're not good enough. You know, we can think that we should be quiet, or we shouldn't, you know, use our voice as loudly, or we shouldn't take up space, all of these kinds of things, right? None of that is true. I say that to say this. When I was first told about politics, I must have been 20, 21 years old, you know? And interestingly, I thought I was too young. You know, I thought, well, what could I possibly bring to the world of politics at that age? And it was actually one of my former bosses, you know, who was like, you know, Jill, you should consider politics. You're not too young. Go for it. And I didn't go for it because I wasn't as sure of myself back then as I would become now. Interesting point. There's actually a white male, a cisgender white male, sitting in the legislature who's probably about 22 or 21, or maybe he was 20 or 19 or something like that when we got into office in 2018. And you might be wondering, well, why did you mention that he was white and he was male? I mention that because it's really important to note that in politics, you know, there's still a majority, there's an overrepresentation of white males in politics, you know, male identifying people, right? Whereas women, not as much. I mean, in the NDP, we have 50% gender parity. So that means that we've got 50% women identifying folks in our caucus. And we also have the largest number of BIPOC elected officials, Black, Indigenous, or people of color, elected officials in our caucus. So that makes us pretty diverse. And frankly, the most diverse official opposition that Ontario has ever seen, quite frankly. And that's why we were able to create the Ontario NDP Black Caucus, which has myself and Faisal Hassan that I mentioned earlier, and Dr. Laura May Lindo, and Dr. Rima Burns McGowan, and Kevin Yard, and myself, right? So, but getting back to the question, how did I do this all? First of all, I didn't do it by myself. So 2 decades after, or almost 2 decades after, I was asked by that old boss to run, I was asked again. And I got to tell you, I was asked again and again and again from people in my community, from city councilors that I trusted, you know, from mentors, and also from people who worked with the NDP. So that was really cool, right? And after a lot of soul searching and humming and hawing and talking to professors of mine and talking to friends of mine, and of course talking to like the most important person in my life, that would be my mother, and then the next very most important person in my life, my partner, you know, we made a decision as a team, you know, and that decision was, yes, we're going to run. So when you're running to be in office as an NDP member, and I can only speak, you know, to the NDP's process, you have to, you know, fill out application forms, you have to be vetted. And by vetted, you know, that means that the party has to get to know you. You know, the party has to make sure that your values line up with their values. Oh, nice, Layla. You're going to be a professor when you grow up? That is amazing. I'm really proud to hear that, you know? And that process can take a short while. It can take a long while, you know? And, you know, after that process, after you've been vetted, you know, after you have like a nomination meeting, you know, where you've gathered enough people who support your idea of running and are like, yeah, I'll back this person. Their values align with mine. You know, then you have that nomination meeting, you become a candidate. I'm sort of glossing over a few steps, but you get the idea. But the key thing here is you never do this all alone. You cannot do this all alone. This involves volunteers. This involves your family. This involves your former coworkers, because I remember I actually had coworkers come out and support me. You know, when I was running in 2018, this involves all of your friends, and it also involves money, because you've got to raise money. You've got to raise money because campaigns are not cheap, right? And that's another thing about politics that I want to sort of flag is, you know, in the best utopian world, anyone should be able to run. You know what I mean? In politics, you shouldn't have to pay like some thousands of dollars just to apply to try to become a candidate. You know, and that's the case in other political parties. You know, I've heard that's the case in the Liberal Party, for instance, you know, where you kind of have to pay a lot up front to even play, you know, and what we don't want in politics, you should never have a pay to play system, you know. It should be more about democracy, and it should be more about, you know, having more single parents running, you know, having more women running, having more BIPOC community folks, you know, who may not have, you know, a lot of personal wealth. And again, it's not because they're not smart. It's not because they don't work hard, right? But sometimes it can be because of that not so happy thing called systemic discrimination, right? We've certainly seen how that's impacted our small business communities. You know, like in my riding here in St. Paul's, we have a fantastic community that's colloquially or like, you know, casually called Little Jamaica, you know, and there's so many businesses in Little Jamaica that have been there for tens of years. Like I'm talking way before I was even born. You know, Mickey, I remember being your age and walking in Little Jamaica with my mom to go get hair products at Monica's and whatnot. You know what I mean? So communities like those have historically had a hard time accessing money in the bank, like accessing loans and grants, you know? And that's a whole other story, a whole other workshop that we could talk about, you know? But people like those need to be running in office. You know what I mean? The people who policies and laws impact the most need to be running in office, you know? Like a little fun fact, I learned this years ago. Like to be a senator, for instance, you have to own land. You got to own a home, right? So what does it say if you have to own a home? Like what does owning a home have to do with being a good senator, you know, or being a good politician? You know, like we need people who are reflective of our society. And while there are wealthy people in society, and I have nothing against wealthy people, right? We also have to ensure that everyone has access, you know, an opportunity to be able to put their name forward and run and maybe even be successful like I was, you know? So it's been a really interesting run so far. There's a lot's happened, you know, like I tell you in 2018, you know, when you know, Premier Ford decided to cut city council in half, that wasn't a very good move. The whole city erupted. Literally, hundreds, thousands of people showed up at Queen's Park demanding their democracy back, you know, because they didn't like the fact that the premier meddled in city council business. Because you remember how I said earlier that it's good to be able to work together? That's good. But you also don't want to step on people's toes, right? And that was a real big step on city council's toes. And something that frankly took away supports and took away resources from our cities. And some communities in our cities really need that support more than ever. You know what I mean? And so it's really important that we find a way for politics to be as accessible and as inclusive as possible. And your bank account should not dictate whether or not you can run in politics or not. So yeah, it was an interesting journey. And that's like a snippet. I could write books on my journey so far in politics.
Fantastic. Well, I think the kids learned a lot. They had one last question that we did have for you was, how can kids affect change?
Oh, wow.
What can kids do? Because our kids are like between the ages of 8 and 13. Sometimes they're younger and sometimes they're older.
Yes.
KiddieNomics. But they want to but we want to know what can kids do? Like what can Mickey do and all the other kids that join? What can they do to affect change?
Well, there's a whole lot that you can do. I'll tell you this. I have attended environment rallies at Queen's Park. I have attended education rallies at Queen's Park. I have attended rallies where community members, especially Indigenous community members, are fighting for the simple basics of clean drinking water. And you know who often has the biggest voice at those rallies? Kids. You'd be surprised how many children. I mean, look at Greta Thunberg and what she's done to sort of open up the conversation on environment and on climate change and on our responsibility to make it better. You know what I mean? I think about that little young Black boy who had this powerful sign that said Black Lives Matters. You know, a few years ago, when I was standing outside of the Toronto Police Services station on College Street, you know, when we were fighting for Black lives, you know, because just way too many of us, you know, were either calling for help and ending up dead, or, you know, just weren't happy with the kind of community relations that were brewing between some, not all, some people within the policing institutions and Black communities. Who were at the center of those? Young people, young activists, including children. So you are never too young to get involved. You are never too young to have an interest in politics. You know, your first step, if you have an interest in politics, you speak to your parents, You speak to your guardian, you speak to your nana, to your auntie, to whoever a caring adult might be. They might even be at school, right? And you say, hey, I'm interested in learning about politics. And I'm interested in learning about how politics impacts my community. You don't have to go big all at once. Like, don't take on the whole country all at once, right? You can take on your block. You can take on your neighborhood. Is there an issue that matters? You know, is there a recycling issue? Is there an issue with regards to litter that you don't like? Is there an issue happening at school? You know, is there a bus stop that you feel doesn't get serviced well, where you think you could do with more buses because you're always late for school? And it's like, wait a second, why does this happen on our street and not 10 streets to the east or 10 streets to the west, right? You can start a petition. I see that Thomas said he started a petition. Absolutely, you can do that. You can do all kinds of things to get involved. And if you're interested in getting involved in a party sense of the word, you know, you can also just reach out and learn about that party. You know, speak to someone that's in the party. Reach out to a politician, just like how Mickey did. You know, I wouldn't have met Mickey if Mickey didn't proactively check in and say, hey, what's up? You know, I'm this kid who's really big on financial literacy. I'm this kid that really feels that financial literacy can, you know, create a more positive, transformative path for young people. You know, not only in terms of, you know, ownership with, say, for instance, housing or real estate or anything like that, but just a better sense of autonomy, right? A sense of accomplishment. You know, and also it creates that kind of a world where, you know, your dreams are a little less, you know, inhibited, you know, when you have that financial capacity to be able to participate, you know, financially in the world that we live in, right? So Mickey reached out and that's how we got connected. But that said, I gotta say this as well, you know, we're not defined by how much money we make, you know, we're not defined by our titles, you know. People meet me and they're sort of like, oh my gosh, you're a doctor. And then I quickly say, a PhD, not an MD. And then they say, don't say a PhD and not an MD, because a PhD is a doctor. And that is very, 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 very true. But again, as young people and even as adults, sometimes we have that little negative self-talk. And it tries to silence us. It tries to dim our shine. And we have to stop it whenever we can, whenever we can. We always want to stop that little, you know, voice inside that tries to help us or tries to tell us to dim our shine, you know? So titles, fancy, you know, jobs, lots of money, that is not what defines who we are. It's not what makes us good people. It's how we use our time. It's the issues that matter and how we advocate for them. And if we should be one of those people who have fancy titles and, you know, and big bank accounts, then we should be thinking about how we use those resources to ensure that the majority, if not everyone, you know, can benefit from that too. That's what makes us a really good person.
So
and somebody was asking about
what is the PhD?
It's a doctor of philosophies, essentially. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like you get a PhD in social science, you may get a PhD in culture, you could get one in English, you could get one in women's studies, you can get one in education, and it is different from a medical doctorate, you know, which would be a person that can look after our mental health or our physical health, for instance. However, I do believe that PhDs do water and nurture our mental health, because many PhDs who are professors are doing just that. They're taking care of our intellectual health and our mental health, teaching us in schools across our fine nation.
Well, this was absolutely fantastic. I don't know if the kids have any more questions as I was going through, but I think we answered that last one. What was a PhD? They said, Miss Jill is so nice. They love this class. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, you all were very nice too. I appreciate that. And again, I just want to give a shout out to you, Stacy. You know, what you're doing, supporting, or I should say Miss Brown. Follow by example. I'm Miss Jill, that's Miss Brown. Miss Brown, what you are doing with this platform, creating this opportunity to bring young people together, supporting your daughter in the way you are, it's just outstanding. And I really hope that all of your elected officials see you, know you, and if they don't, they better get to know who you are so they can help amplify what you're doing, not only for kids and communities and families in your neighborhood, but certainly across the globe. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, no, we love our KiddieNomics community, and the kids have learned so much and grow each week, and they always ask the most insightful questions. I'm super proud of the kids on KiddieNomics.
Yes.
And the fact that they're learning so many different topics each
exactly.
week. Their knowledge base is just like, I
Exactly.
wish this knowledge.
Oh, me too. Me too. So quick question, Mickey, before we leave, can you plug your books? Because I understand that you're an author as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I need to know so that I can actually write them down so that I can purchase your books, and let us know where I can get them too.
Chapters, and that's the only thing.
Amazon.com and .ca. But what's the name of the book?
I Will Own a Castle.
I Will Own a Castle.
Ooh, I Will Own a Castle. My goodness. Young one, I have no doubt. I have no doubt that whatever you put your mind to, with the right supports, and your number one support is sitting right next to you, and your schools and community, and with the right investments from people like me, like, government and elected officials across the board, I have no doubt that you will achieve that castle. I have no doubt.
Me too. Well, thank you, Miss Jill, because I know that you have to go. You have
yes.
So thank you so much. I will wrap up with the kiddies as we do our wrap
Perfect.
up. So thank you.
Bye. And
Bye.
Keep in touch. Take care. And in case you don't already, consider selling your books at independent bookstores too. Yeah, Mabel's Fables in my community here in St. Paul's might be a really cool place.
We will
or a different book list, or another story bookshop. Those are some really cool bookstores. And Gladney too. I mean, who knows? Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, Miss Jill. Bye. All right, kiddies, I am going to wrap up as we usually do. So give me 5 more minutes of your time. So, question that I ask on every single KiddieNomics webinar: what would happen if kids became more financially literate? And our answer is
real change that impacts the world.
Real change that impacts the world. And why is that? Because guess what? The more financially literate that you become, it just propels you to really accomplish whatever it is that you feel that you want to become in your life as you get older. And financial literacy is always the solid foundation that you will need, whatever the job or career or whatever it is that you want to build or create, because you guys can be kid bosses, entrepreneurs, you guys can be whatever it is that you want to be, but you will always need financial literacy, no matter how much money you make or don't make, where you live. It doesn't matter. You will always need financial literacy. All right. Okay. Next slide. So what do we call you? Like, I call you guys every week. I say what you guys are. You guys are young financial literacy ambassadors, right? What does that mean? An ambassador is somebody that is an authorized messenger or representative. That means it's somebody that you can go out there. I authorize you guys to share all the knowledge that you learn on KiddieNomics. You guys learn so much every single week. Share that knowledge to your friends and your family and your community, because guess what? Knowledge is our
superpower.
Superpower. So share it, because literally the more that you share your knowledge, the stronger you become, and your friends and family and everybody around you becomes. So that's literally what a superhero is. You guys are our superheroes. You guys are so smart and so young, learning all these things. You guys are superheroes. So go out there, share the knowledge, and be the ambassadors that you guys are. All right, what is coming up in the next couple of weeks? Next week, we do have politics again. So we are going to talk about how to run for politics. Like, how do you guys really get involved? I know that Miss Jill covered a little bit of it, but we are going to get more in depth with Miss Kadira Jackson. She is running for a Liberal seat in Scarborough. So she's going to tell you exactly how you do that, and volunteer if you want to in any party. How do you do that, right? And then we have, after that, we have Mr. Ryan Henry. That's going to be on Friday, March 26th, and that's going to talk about commercial real estate. So we always touch on real estate on KiddieNomics. We touch on virtually every topic, but real estate is a big one. And so now we're going to talk about commercial real estate, which is like all those tall buildings that you see and plazas and malls. That's called commercial real estate. Your house that you live in, that's called residential. So we're going to start talking about like the buildings, and that's going to be on Friday, March 26th. And then we're going to have the return of Miss Gloria. Miss Gloria is going to be back on KiddieNomics with us, and she's going to talk about how do taxes affect your investments. So this is a big one. So a lot of our kids, you know, we do investments. There's a lot of kids that do have portfolios, and you may invest in stocks, like Mickey has stocks, and you want to know, like, how do taxes affect your investments? So we're going to talk about that. Yeah, you think you remember her, Karen? Yeah, she's awesome. So she was in, Miss Gloria came on in January. So now she'll be back on April 9th. And then we're going to have two lawyers on, Miss Cynthia and Miss Kimberly. They're going to talk to us on Friday, April 16th, and we're going to talk about trademarks. So what are trademarks? Business trademarks, how to trademark your name or saying. It's going to be really important if you are building your own business. What does that mean? Okay. You're also going to notice on Friday, April 2nd is Good Friday, and we won't have a KiddieNomics webinar. So there is no KiddieNomics webinar on Friday, April 2nd, but I will keep reminding you as weeks come up. Okay. Now we have another special KiddieNomics webinar coming up in May, on May 21st, Friday, May 21st. We have Miss Marcy Ian. She is formerly of The Social. So she used to be a co-host on The Social, and she's now an MP, which is a federal party leader. And so she is an MP, a Liberal leader for Toronto. And she will be on talking about the power of pivoting. So that's going to be an awesome one. I would like you kids to, just like we did for Miss Jill, I'd like you kids, if you guys have any questions for her, I want you to send me an email or put it in the chat now for me, please. And then I will have those questions ready for Miss Marcy, okay? If you are going to send me an email, please don't forget to get your parents' permission before you send me an email, all right? But that's going to be another special edition of KiddieNomics, and I'm super excited to have Miss Marcy Ian on KiddieNomics coming up. All right, so that is it. Just remember, if you guys have any thoughts, feedback, any topic that you would like us to present to you, any topic ideas, please send me an email so that I can know what it is. You guys send me emails all the time on topic suggestions. Like you guys wanted to talk about politics. So now we've had a couple of politicians that are coming on. Somebody wanted to know about taxes. How do taxes affect in fact, Ibby, I think this was your topic that you wanted to talk about. So I made sure that we had this one on for you. But whatever topics that you guys email me, I do follow up and I do get the guest expert on. So please send me your ideas, okay? Because we're going to be here every single Friday from 5 to 6, okay? And then please, if you do find the information valuable and you do like what we have here on KiddieNomics, please like and follow us on
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube and
TikTok. Yes. So please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's not get started again this week about TikTok. We will get a video up one of these days. It's been almost a year.
Probably
so
like in 2 years.
I know, Ngozi, you're like, post to TikTok. I know. We're going to get there.
Don't worry, after she's done editing this video, I'll make it.
We're gonna do it. We'll see. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful week. I'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Can we talk about law? Okay, Ibby, can you send me an email and tell me more in detail what you want to talk about law? But anyways, have a great week. We'll see you next week, and bye.